When I was 15, I was one of the last girls to get my period, to, become a woman in my school year. Around that time, I was actually shipped off with about 60 other girls, all of the same age as me, to a school camp far up in the very northeast corner of Victoria, near the little town of Malakuta. It was around that time that I started to have dreams, premonitions, dreams of the future. It was like little snapshots of things that eventually came true. Meaningless things, really, like I would look at a mug of hot chocolate in front of an open fireplace, or on the tram I would see the hand grips swinging and a man with blue eyes. Just random everyday things that I would see happen. It was like deja vu. I had dreamt them a week ago. So, before I went to the camp, I was very, very, very concerned. I didn't know if I'd be able to fit in, because, I was so obviously different, not only because of my deafness, but with this gift I had. I didn't want to go, but my mum and my dad pushed me. They said, you should go. So off I went. I arrived there and things actually went quite well. I made a few new friends, a few girls in my year. And, during the day we'd go out into the bush. But I started having a few dreams that were really quite vivid. Things that would just happen in the bush. Like a film reel. Like splices of life. It really didn't worry me. And then one week on the Friday, the postal bag needed to be ready to go. So everyone would write their letters and put them in the postal bag to be taken to the post office for all of our families. And we would get letters on Friday as well, after lunch. So we had to hurry. I had to hurry and write a letter and post it by 1 o'clock. So I had about 2 hours. One night I had a dream, and I dreamt I was standing in the garage at my house. I have 5 rats at home. They were beautiful rats, and they lived outside the garage in a cage. In the cage, in the dream, the rats had made a hole, and they had dug their way out to explore the garage. And in the dream, I was standing next to our fridge. There was a fridge in the garage because it was too big for the kitchen. And I was standing next to the fridge, and I was watching the black rat. His name was Perry, my favourite. He always had a bit of a breathing problem, but he was a really happy rat. And the other rat was a hooded rat called Dale. He was a little bit older, but still very active, and I was watching them in my dream coming out of the hole that they would dug, through the carpet, and there was a cat from the book Foot Rot Flats, and it was a tabby with black spots, and she jumped onto my black rat, Perry, and ripped out his throat. Dale, the hooded rat, ran off and hid under a huge lump of branches and leaves. And I couldn't see him anymore. And then I woke up. My heart was pounding, and I thought, no. It was just a dream. It was just a dream. Then the next day, it was the Friday, we all had lunch together, and I was a little bit late to get my letters ready to go to the post office. I had received 3 or 4 letters from my mother and my father, from school friends, and one from my sister. The letter from my sister was her first ever letter to me. I had been at the camp at that time for 1.5 months. I'd actually asked my mum to get my sister to write me a letter because I felt a little bit lonesome. The other girls always received huge cachets of letters, and I only received a few. I saved my sister's letter to the end. It was on very pretty paper, because my sister was a bit of a hippie at that time. It had gold and dark blue borders with little suns and stars. It was very short. My sister told me that life was really good at home and that all was going really well, and that I was not to make a pig of myself or pig out. But at the very bottom she said, P.S. The rats have found a hole in the cage and they keep looking to get into the garage, but it's okay, they keep getting back to the cage. They haven't escaped. I couldn't remember anything but my dream at that moment. I dropped everything, all of the entire bundle of letters, the letters from my parents, everything. I grabbed a piece of plain paper and an envelope, and I wrote very, very, very quickly to make sure I made the post, which closed soon. I said, sorry, please make sure my rats are safe. Can you please block up the hole and don't allow them to get into the garage? I'm afraid something will happen to them. I'm worried they will die. Please do something. I put the letter in the envelope. I borrowed a stamp from a friend and I ran through the grassy path and ran. It was really hard going from my cabin. The post office was actually up a steep incline at the top of a hill, and so I got the letter in time, just in time. And then there was nothing I could do but wait. The following weekend there was a parental visit weekend, and my parents were coming to see what camp was like. I had hoped and prayed that my letter had arrived at home in time. I was concerned for about a week, feeling a sense of despair. I felt sick in the pit of my stomach, waiting. And then finally, the parents' weekend arrived. And I can remember when my parents' white Jeep parked in the car park. And my mum, the first thing I said to my mum was, "Mum, is my rat's okay?" And she said, "I've got something to tell you." It was just that my letter home had arrived home one day too late. My little black rat, Perry, was found outside of the cage. He wasn't killed by a cat, but he had coughed so hard that he had expelled blood from his lungs. And Dale, the hooded rat, was found as well. He had died of old age, and he was found under the clump of branches and leaves. That night, we all went out to dinner in the town, to a restaurant. We were all sitting around the table, my father, his partner, my mother, my little brother, myself. My sister was at home looking after the pets. And I tried to bring up this subject. I tried to quiz my parents about what they knew, why or how. More about this. Why do I have these dreams? Is it normal? But no one in my family wanted to talk about it. They just didn't want to talk about it. After they left, I had another dream. It was a really bad dream. I dreamt my mum had killed herself and that my father had tried to molest me. When I woke up, I couldn't stop screaming because I didn't know if it was going to come true or not. I mean, it could come true. Maybe it hadn't happened, but it still could happen. And then, a few weeks later, I had another dream. A dream that I'd met a much younger boy. And in my dream, I thought he was my son. And his name was James. He only came up to about here on me in the dream. And after that, nothing much happened. Things were quite normal. And I would sleep and try and forget about my dreams in the morning. Then one day I came home and my mum told me again, "I've got something I have to tell you." She said, "I have a son that I gave away when I was very young. His name is James, and he's coming here to meet us."